Welcome everybody to our episode 119 today. Thank you, Kakoli Singha, for joining us with your debut book, Jarota, War of Evil Shadows. From being a management professional to content creation in the insurance and fintech space, you have now embarked on a journey to create books on Indic fantasy and mythology. I have to say, it is a privilege to host you today. So I'll dive into questions right away, and we are very excited to have you here today.
So I'm very excited to be here. So thank you so much, Dia. Thank you so much, Neeta ji, for hosting me. And thank you for taking out time to go through my book. It means a lot to me when any reader reads my book and has any kind of feedback. So that really means a lot, and I feel very proud that there is somebody somewhere who is reading my thoughts. So thank you so much, and I'm so happy and so I feel so privileged to be on your platform today, especially you have had so many such podcasts before, so I feel really privileged to be one amongst the many speakers, so thank you.
No, we are honored, ma'am. So diving into the questions right away, I have to say I'm quite intrigued by the fact that your book it transports the reader to an individual fantasy world. It has references to Indian mythological beings such as Yakshma, Yazi, Kinara, and Apsara. And it is relatable to India's youth as the book has new age characters. So we have to ask, what does Jarota mean, since it's quite an unusual name, and how did it come about? Also, we would love to know, please do tell us what was the thought process behind creating this book in the genre of Indian fantasy world.
Okay. Dia, when I was in school, I was also a very avid fantasy reader, and I used to love reading fantasy, and I used to read a lot of Lord of the Rings. I used to read Harry Potter. I was so addicted. I used to stay up late night, and my mother would come and tell me that, yeah, it's better why are you not sleeping? And then I would just pretend that I'm sleeping and put on my covers and then, put on some torchlight and read underneath. So that time we didn't have mobiles, but I would put it under the torch and read. So I was so excited and interested on, about fantasy. But what really pricked me somewhere was that all these characters were very foreign. And,
Hmm.
even in Lord of the Rings, there is a wizard and then there are dwarves and uh, elves. So even in Harry Potter, there were witches. So I could never relate with any of them. So then
Hmm.
I used to always feel, why are there no apsaras? Why are there no yakshas in the books? So I
Hmm.
always thought that I will write some fantasy someday. That was my thought. So when I was in college, I used to write short fantasy stories. Then when I grew a little older, I started, like I used to write, I started with 1,000 words and I went to 3,000 words. Then after I completed my MBA, I had a gap of around 3 to 4 months before I joined my next company. So I decided, okay, let me, try something. If it works out well and good, it's just a project, just a, 3 4 month project that I will do. So that's how I started to write Jarota. So initially, I did a lot of research on, Indian mythological figures. So I did research on, like what are the different types of stories that we had. So then I came to know, like I always knew, obviously, when you're a small child, you read these books. But then again, I reread Panchatantra, I reread Vikram Betal. Then I reread some of the other fantasy stories. So there are a lot of fantasy stories in Bengali. So I used to go through, like I and then understand what are the characters, what is the message. So then I in that way I started to build my own story, and then I used to find different characters. So I used to travel also because I had like a 4 month break. So I used to travel to, like, I went to the Mysore Palace. I went to some places in the north. So then every time I would visit a temple, no, I would see the temple architecture. And in the Mysore Palace, I saw this two-headed bird. So I was like, oh, what is this two-headed bird? Let me check. So I went and I researched and I found out it's a Gandhabirunda. It's actually even there in the Mysore Palace. It's a part of their palace architecture. It's a part of their symbol. It's there in their Mysore emblem. So I was like, okay, this is a such a cool character, and they have dragons. Why can't we introduce our own Gandberunda? So that's how So in my cover, you will see this is
Mm.
the two-headed bird. This is the
Mm.
Gandberunda. It forms one of the characters of my book. So they are having names Man and Chit. So these are
Mm.
this is the Kandabarunda. This is Kinnara in my book. So basically, Kinnara is also there in temples. There is another character that I have, which is a Yaksha. I'll just try to see. Yeah, Yaksha. So Yaksha is also it's a guardian. It forms a part of my one of the characters of my book. So there are multiple characters in my book. There are a lot of sketches. So through those you will come to know. So then I researched. So initially I researched characters basically, and then I next after that I went to okay. So these are the characters. This is a Yazvi
Mm.
in my book.
Mm.
Okay, so these are basically guardians of temple. So when you will go to visit any temple, you will see that their structures are there. So after these characters were formed, I thought, okay, let me see what kind of stories can be built around them. Then I thought, okay, what if there is something in the current times, but also connecting to these mythical beings from our culture. So I started to write the story, and then it took a long time.
Mm.
Actually, the first chapter I wrote is now, I think, the 15th or 16th chapter of the book. So there's a lot of rearrangement, and then you have to give them, backstories. And then it just kind of builds up. And then in a matter of 3 months, actually, in the first 3 to 4 months, I just wrote the first rough draft. Then for 6, 8 months, I was editing that draft. So this was in the year 2016.
Mm.
Then I started to send it out to publishers, but I was getting rejects. So I thought, okay, it's anyways getting rejected. Maybe I need to rework it. So I reworked it in 2017. I reworked it in 2018. This went on the process till 2020. Garuda accepted to publish it. So
Mm.
till then, I was just reworking and adding chapters, and so ultimately it became a 330 page kind of a big novel.
Mm.
It takes time, and the first draft and the draft today, there is a lot of difference. There are a lot of new characters. So initially, I used to write on Wattpad. So this book, actually, I had participated in Wattpad in 2019, Wattpad fantasy, fantasy and fiction, something was there. So Wattpad, fantasy fiction book of the year. So this book had actually won by popular votes. It had got the best fantasy. So I used to post the chapters online also on Wattpad. I used to have readers, and the readers were kind enough to many times point out mistakes, point out errors in plots. So that's how, there was rework even in 2019. And then finally, I sent it out to Garud and they accepted it. So it's a long journey and
Mm.
it's still not over. In 2020, they took the book, but for 2 years, they edited it and they then checked, whether there is consistency, the plot is correct. Then they will give you their remarks or reviews. And then the final finished book, it's years and years of efforts in one book. So, I'm sorry, I lost the next question that you had asked me.
It was just that how did the name Jarota come about?
Oh, yes. So, Jarota, so as I told you, I was a big fan of Lord of the Rings.
Mm.
And J.R.R. Tolkien, he has this habit of giving short names with a lot of like vowels. So, there were names like Bilbo, Frodo. So
Mm.
I thought, if there is a name with vowels and something trendy, so I was making up names. So that's how I made up Jarota, and I made up a lot of the names of the kingdom also. But some of the mean things, it's not that. So there's a kingdom called Surali, which I have taken from the sun. So not everything is made up, but yeah, Jarota is a made up name.
I think Jarota is such a good name. It even sounds like you would listen to that name and it will sound of an Indian character with a deep story. So it's just a perfect name, I would say.
Thank
Moreover,
you
I
so much.
completely agree. Even I am a huge fan of the fantasy fiction world and Harry Potter, Percy Jackson. And I think something that
Yes, yes.
lacked really was the stories of Indian characters. and that
Yes.
really is not seen. So it's amazing that you have written this book, and I must refer it to every single viewer of ours, since it's a very good read and it will keep your attention in the book, and you should definitely purchase it.
Thank you so
You know,
much.
yeah, Kakoli, when I spoke to you yesterday about the book and, pre-leading to our conversation today, I found the energy and the excitement really running through our conversation. And when I'm going to finish the book today, your excitement energy is also running in this book. The way the plot is taking turns, and suddenly you have Ryan coming in, and that was really the surprise part. And I must tell you, Dia, you need to kind of read it very, very quickly because you've started it, but you kind of need to finish it. You know, they have fantasy characters like Aramani, Potla, Zofar, as you just mentioned, the name of the place, Surali, and they're very and it's quite vivid. You know, when you read the book, you feel you are there in the plot itself. So, kind of a make believe world, I must say, that you've made. So, what came to you, the plot or the characters first? Because that is something that I need to know.
So actually, it's a mix. The first character actually that came to my mind was Potla, the Kinnara on the cover of my book, and I wanted it to be like two naughty children. That was the
Mm.
first thought that I had. It would be a story about, because I thought the Indianness should be taught at the school level. That was my thinking, because that was something I missed when I was small. So I was like, okay, there should be some, Indian elements even in our books when we read it as children. Or our teachers, they used to give us something called as zero period, where we could read any book, go to the library. So I thought there should be some, introduction to Indian mythical beings at that age. So I started to write with these two characters, these two children in mind. Uh, Somewhere then the first chapter I wrote was actually the 16th chapter, wherein there is a monster, green, it's called a guyak. So,
Yes.
that was the beginning of, where I started to write. Okay, so it started off like that, that these two, children, they are getting chased and caught by the guyak. So, but then I thought, no, there should be more, something more, something more, there should be more characters, there should be depth. So I started to write everybody's background. Then, that way everything starts to build up. And then I thought, okay, let me have a kingdom, let me have the queen of the kingdom, and it just keeps adding, after that. And then actually I had started off with that plot in mind, but then it it ended up being a lot more than that. Even till 2020, I think we were still editing with Garuda also in with me. Uh, there was a dedicated editor assigned to me, and then even then we ideated some new characters. So Gandabarunda is actually a very new character that we introduced. But then that's how, but this was because it's my first book, so I it was so haywire for me. But the second one that I completed, I was very clear what I wanted to write. I had everything prepared. So the second book is actually not targeted for the children. It's for young adults and older. So it's basically about the parents of Rian. So it's more into the mythical world, and more into Jarota and the politics of Jarota. So, and Apsaras and the other characters. So I had the entire plot like written down in Excel, and what I want to write, and how many pages, how many words. So that was what I followed for the second book. But the first book was little, like I learned through the journey of writing the book.
No, fantastic. And I would
Yes.
really like to know what all authors shaped your writing style, because I'm sure you have to be a really a vociferous reader to be able to write about fantasy, especially in that genre. And yes, we are lacking in India the Indian narrative as far as epic writing is concerned, or epic fantasy writing is concerned. So, what all authors really influenced your writing?
So the first author, that I read, uh, see, obviously there was, Harry Potter, influence of Harry Potter, and Lord of the Rings. Uh, but there were a lot of short stories that I used to read when I was a child. a lot of TV series that I used to watch, a lot of series that I watched even when I was in college. Um, so there is a mix of, a lot of people that I have uh, read, and that I have tried to, bring out through my writing. But it's very mixed. It's not, I cannot contribute it to any one person. So even when I used to go to school, we used to get books. We used to get uh, uh, you know books from Leo Tolstoy, or we used to get a lot of different authors. Rabindranath Tagore also I have read. So I cannot pinpoint and tell you who exactly, because it's been a mix. I mean, in school I used to read like one book every week, one story book. We had access to library, so I had a good library in my school from where I would borrow books, and my father worked in the port. So there also, thankfully, I was very fortunate. We had a very big library of Bombay Port, of which we had free membership, so I could get any book that I wanted. So I would read Enid Blyton's, and I would read. I mean, I cannot tell you all the names; they are not coming to my mind right now. Uh, but you name an author, and I must have read it. So it's been a mix of so many different people and so many different stories. So
Mm,
somewhere, I have written Jarota.
That's totally understandable. I mean, in the end, you are a culmination of all your experiences, and that shows in your book. And I have to ask you, and this will be a question even for budding authors, people looking to write their first book, is this was your first book. How did you use social media as an author? Did you use it to market your book? Did it change your approach to writing your next book? And do you Google yourself often?
So I Google my book very often, like every day. I've stopped doing it now. I would like to. I mean, I used to go and see what Ramani hates, but it doesn't really matter much. It doesn't change on a daily basis, so I have stopped doing it now. But social media marketing is very important.
Mm,
So I actually work as a content manager in the marketing function. So I do know the importance of marketing your product, because there are like, so at least from where I come, right, there are hundreds of products. But why would somebody select your product over Y product? Because you are reaching out to the consumers. You're telling them this is an A product. This is having so many benefits. You are asking people to review, and that is why, a lot of selling basically happens through word of mouth, and through your current existing clients.
mm,
So uh, it's very important to get your product out in the out for everybody to know. So you might have written the best book, but if nobody knows about your book, it's not going to be sold. So these
mm.
are very hard, hard statements to make, but then this is the reality of today. What is seen is remembered and is read. So you have to be out there. I also am on this journey. I many of these skill sets. So it's thanks to, my workplace, that I have learned how to make videos, edit videos, create content. So it's basically, I have worked, I'm working since the past 8 years in a corporate marketing field. So I am a little aware of, how marketing takes place. So whatever limited skill sets I have, I create videos, I create content. I have created an Instagram page.
Mm,
I try to create as many new different videos that I can. I try to put snippets from my book. I try to get reviews from readers. Um, so right now my focus is to get to as many readers as is possible, who can write good reviews and give good feedback for my book. So it's an ongoing process. It doesn't stop. You have to do it every single day. I cannot do it every day, but every week I try to create some new content and put it. So as much as writing a book is important, even marketing it on different platforms is important. Uh, and in today's day and age, it is easier. At least there is social media. So in the earlier times, I think people with books would actually physically visit stores and put up their books or talk to readers in malls. So
mm,
thankfully, we have social media to target like 1 lakh, 2 lakh people at once in one ad. So I try to do it and try to create content and put it for my readers every week.
That makes sense. And it must be exciting to see the reactions and reviews of readers. So,
Yes, but the best reaction and the best, I feel the happiest when somebody actually reads my book. The
Yes.
likes on Facebook, and it doesn't matter to me. It is what matters to me is when somebody reads a book and tells me, "Oh, I have read the book from cover to cover and I love it." So, I always wait for that moment. The
of
rest of the things that, they just come and go. That is the major satisfaction.
And you have put in so much hard work in this. And uh,
Yes,
book publishing, of course, I've not done it, but I've come to realize it's such a hard and rigorous process to go through and a long process. And I must say,
yes, yes.
congratulations to you.
Thank you so much.
Uh, I also have to ask, how do you think you would react if you were to meet your characters?
Oh my God. This is something that I
That's a
have
good
never
one, Dia.
thought.
Yeah.
This is, but this would be
I
so
mean,
exciting.
I would put it like this. Suppose if you were Ryan and you you meet Potla the way he did.
Potla. Oh my
Yes.
God. I would
That was such
be
a great
so,
meeting and so unexpected. Suddenly, the turning point in the book. We were going in one direction, and suddenly you have. And I was thinking when I was reading the beginning of your book, and I was thinking, oh, I must ask her what kind of, what year is she thought about. And suddenly you have the present day coming in. So that was maybe if you were Ryan and you met Potla, or maybe any other character that you really like, maybe Arimani, maybe Chandramukhi,
yes,
maybe
yes.
these yakshas, maybe Kala, maybe Saya, so many of them.
Okay. This is such an amazing question. I have never thought about this. I am so surprised that I never thought of this. Thank you so much, Dia, for asking me this
Yes,
question. It's put me, in such a I mean, okay. So I would be, if I would have met Kodla the way Rian did, I would be petrified. I mean, Rian,
yes,
I must say, is very, very brave to actually
yes,
listen to him and talk to him. I would have probably run away in the opposite direction. But, but yeah, if I would have like known, okay, this is, these are friendly characters and you can be friends with them, then yeah, I think Kodla would be a great friend to have. He's so like He's so trustworthy and so loyal and always standing by you. So Potla would be great. Aryamani is so, fierce. I would have learned so many things from her. She has so many skill sets. She knows archery, she knows horse riding. I think I would have, tried to learn as much as I can from her. She knows how to, run a kingdom. And the rishis definitely, they would be great, valuable, uh, teachers and would be able to give me good advice. Saya, I don't know. Saya and Kal. Kal, if I would meet, I don't know what I would do. I would probably get a heart attack because he is so ferocious. But so these,
yes.
yes, I will, I hope I hope I meet at least the Jarotians, if not Kal and Saya, someday in my life. It would be fun. Actually, the one thing I have thought about is I've always thought about a movie, in which these characters come alive and maybe some animation
Mhm.
where these characters come alive, like the 3D animation or if somebody ever funds a movie, it would be fun. So I think of Narnia. I don't know if you have seen, but Narnia also has a lot of these characters. So I would want a movie like that. It would be fun.
Yes, I'm sure. Because anyone listening to this conversation, and suppose you've not read this book, you must know that it has multiples of characters sketched really well. So you kind of need to get into the skin of the characters. And yes, a movie or a teleserial or an animated version would really do justice to the hard work which Kakoli has put in. And also, I love the cover of the book. I must show this book to everyone.
Yes,
It's like
yes,
beautifully done.
yes,
So who was
yes.
behind the cover?
So it's actually an illustrator from Pune, Mr. Ghanshamar Deshmukh. So even that, we have found him after a lot of Instagram scrolling. So me and my husband, we would, go through Instagram profiles and, just try to understand who makes good sketches and who will be able to get. See, because these characters don't exist. So somebody
Hmm.
has to have that kind of skill set to understand something that does not exist and create a character out of it. So, for example, Gan Berunda, it is very difficult to explain these things to any, artist or,
Mm.
Kinnara, or there is a, there are these characters
Lovely
which are
sketches inside.
Chirak,
Yeah.
yeah, Chirakashis, or Markatak. It's very difficult to explain to somebody who does not. If there is somebody who just makes something, from existing sketches or existing things, it is difficult for them to, kind of understand something that does not exist in me. So I had reached out initially. I wanted to make it very low budget because I was like, I don't have money, so let me reach out to my sketch friends, my friends who sketch. So I reached out to three, four of my, they are good at sketching and drawing, but they did not understand, what I wanted. So this is the Guya. So,
Hmm.
this is a fantastic. This is just what I
Lovely
had
sketches.
imagined. So Mr. Gancham was having the expertise to, just put it in a sketch form, which is it's very difficult to comprehend, but he did it. So then we started to look, me and my husband, we used to look at Instagrammers and see who is an Instagrammer who is making original painting. Basically, that was our thought. Not somebody who makes something which is already made, somebody who makes original content. So then through one of the, reels, we found this artist. And then we went on his profile and saw that he has a lot of, and that time lockdown had just started. So he had a lot of these, beautiful sketches on his profile, which were, very otherworldly. So then we approached him, and then he said, okay, I do make sketches for books also. So then, we kind of asked him to get 16, 17 sketches done for the book. So I would have these calls with him, and I would tell him that, there is a char aankhon wala kutta. And he would be like,
Hmm.
char aankh. I'd be like, yeah. Then, I would tell him there is a Apsara with wings, or I would tell him there is a Guyak with, horns. Then one day I told him that, Rian is on a horse. He's like, madam, normal horse, or is this horse having some,
A
five
unicorn.
eyes, or is it having a unicorn? I said, no, no, normal horse. He said, this one is normal. I said, yeah, this one is normal. So, he would also have a great time and, unleash his creativity. So it was quite an exciting, process that we went through.
Yeah, I must tell everyone that Kakoli has especially written this book for children from the age of 5 to 14. But at my age, I really enjoyed myself. I'm reading it. I just can't wait. When I get over with the conversation, I'm going to resume reading. So
Thank you.
yeah, that is how it is going to be with me. Kakoli, now we are coming to the end of the program. We have around four and a half minutes left. You've written short stories, you've written poems earlier. So how did writing your first book change your writing style? Did it really energize you or did it exhaust you? I can see the energy, but how was it
It has,
writing the entire book?
yeah, it was definitely very energizing. And so, short stories basically, so that has its own significance. Short stories and poems. When you have, paucity of time, you are stressed for time, and so that is when you write, shorter work, or you consume shorter work. But then I thought that a longer, so Jarota has around 70,000 words. So now my minimum benchmark is 70,000 words or more. So I just feel that they are having the capacity to create a larger impact on an individual rather, than writing short pieces. It's something that the person can, mull over, something that the person can extend. So even that is one of my thoughts. If there are people who can extend on each of these characters and write, stories for each of these characters in mind, or write similar books. So I would love, then in that way we get more of these Indian stories out for children to read or for adults to read. My second book is, for like 18 years and above. So yeah, so I would want more and more people to, use parts of my book to write their own work and write more, create more content, more Indian content for the world, for the global world. So this content, when I used to write on Wattpad, so right now I don't have access to a lot of global readers because primarily this book is being circulated in India. But when I would write on Wattpad, so it was available for everybody. So there were a lot of people from Europe, who would comment and say, "Oh, this is so much similar to, I come from Greece, and it is reminding me of my mythology also." So they have these Greek mythological characters. It is so similar to Indian. So they would come and tell me that I am from Japan, and we also have a Ganesha. So that the entire global system can be connected with this Indian values and Indian stories and Indian characters, because somewhere everybody has similar, at least the countries that have their pagan rituals, they do have these similar value systems. They have similar characters, mythological beings, so we can connect with them as well. So I just feel that we should all put our efforts and write big novels.
Fantastic. And I wish you all the luck in the world. And
Thank
I'm
you so much.
sure I have this feeling this book is going to do really well. And thank you, Kakoli, for making it such a wonderful and an interesting conversation. We can go on and on, but I must request everyone to read it. We don't want to give you the ending. We don't want to tell you the whole story. This is for you to find out. And thank you, Garuda Prakashan, for putting us together. And I must compliment Garuda for always coming out books on Indian narrative and doing such a great job. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you so much. And please do not forget to subscribe to our channel. You would be able to see many more interactions. All you have to do is subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon for all the notifications.